Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the channel, and in this episode I'm going to be showing you how to change the rear gearbox oil seal in my 2004 C5 RS6. This is a very common problem on all this style of Audis and VW with the inline engine and the Quattro gearbox. The rear prop seal starts to leak and then it starts dripping on the exhaust and starts to smell. It is a job that can be done on the floor. I did it on my previous C5 S6 on axle stands, and my dad did it on his Passat 4Motion on axle stands. But we're here at Autoshack to get it up on the ramp, so it'll make filming much easier so you can see in more detail on how to do the job. So let's get it up in the air. So we're up in the air. Let's see if we can find this oil leak. As we come under, as you can see, leaking on the exhaust there. We've got quite a lot of oil. Put a light on. You can see it's coming out from where the prop shaft goes in the back of the gearbox. And the rear half of the gearbox is actually the transfer box. So where this big pan is here is the automatic transmission. And the cast aluminium part at the back, where it's leaking from, is actually the four-wheel drive transfer box. You can see all over the exhaust, which stinks. So let's have a look at the parts I've purchased to cure this fault. And here are the parts that I ordered, all genuine stuff from Audi. We've got the transfer box oil to fill it back up again. I bought a pair of exhaust joiners because I knew mine were pretty rusty and they can be a real pain to get off. And I always like to come prepared because there's nothing worse than getting halfway through the job and you have to cut something off or a bolt snaps and you're stuck with a car on the ramp. And for the same, I've got the 6 bolts that bolt the prop shaft to the flange and the centre bolt for the flange as well, all just in preparation. They're not a lot of money and it makes life so much easier. You could round off a bolt or have a problem getting it out and have to cut it off. I've got them all ready. And then we've got 2 seals. This is another reason for making the video. There wasn't a lot of information on this online, only a few people had got it. But when I ordered it from Audi, they couldn't tell me which rear seal I actually had on my RS6. There's 2 part numbers, and there's no definition of year or VIN number or production line, why they would be any different. And what it turns out is the one on the left is the original that came with the gearbox, and then they made a revision to the one on the right. And what they added was a little dust seal, which supposedly helped them not leak. But when you fitted this revised seal, you'd also fit a revised flange. And there's no way of knowing whether your gearbox has had this modification or not through the production line year. It'll be after it came out and it's been in other garages. So unless you've got a receipt saying it has been changed, and usually I'd just fit the original seal. But as mine has had a rebuilt gearbox in the past, I don't know whether they've fitted the revised flange or not, which means I'd need the second seal. So there's the 2 part numbers. Has been asked a lot on the Audi A4s, a lot of different models. Some came with the flat seal and some came with the lipped seal. My S6 that I changed was a seal on the right there, and there was no option. That's just what they came out of the production line. But my dad's 4Motion Passat came with the one on the left. So there's no way of knowing until we actually get it off. First things first, we need to get the exhaust off. It's nice and easy on these because it goes underneath the subframe, so it doesn't hang over any shafts or anything. So it's just a case of unbolting the hangers. They've just got a couple of 13mm headed nuts each side. And there's another hanger in the middle. Again, just bolt on. Same on both sides. And then a couple of sliders to separate the 2. They should come off nice and easy. And so already I'm glad I did buy those new exhaust sleeves, because for some reason, as you can see here, the nuts have been welded on. I don't know if they were backed off or kept coming loose, but this is what it should be like. or even this side hasn't got the correct bolts in. They've been replaced just for a nut and bolt. But this end has had the ends cut off and nuts welded on. Like I said, nice and easy. Just a bolt-on mount each side there. Bolt-on mount each side there. And then the sliders on the end. So next, got to get these heat shields down. Heat shields are off, and that's revealed the prop shaft that runs from front to back. And now we can see where it goes into the gearbox, and it's just behind that flange that we're leaking. So we're nearly there now. Next, take off that little heat shield under the coupler. And there's the guard off. There's two T40 Torxes to get that off. One of them was a bit tricky to get to because my guard's a bit bent up. It looks like when they're fitting the gearbox last time, must have got a bit caught up getting in. So I'll straighten that before it goes back on. But now we can see where the prop shaft goes into the transfer box. Now you can see quite clearly where the leak is coming out of. It just comes out of the seal between that flange where it goes into the end of the transfer box. So now let's unbolt the prop with these 6mm Allens. So there's the prop shaft disconnected from the transfer box. The flange is still in there, but if we take it out now, we're going to have a mess because we're still full of transfer box fluid at the moment. We've got the fill point on the side there, that Allen sump plug, and the drain is on the bottom there, this little Allen key. A top tip is always try and remove your fill point first, the level plug, because if you can't get that out and you've already drained the bottom, you're going to be in a whole lot of mess. So just give the fill point a try first, make sure that's loose, and then drain all your fluid out. We could have drained this at any point up until this, but you definitely don't want to do it after you take the flange out because you're going to have a whole load of mess. So the fill level plug is an 8. Check that's all loose. Yep, so we'll be able to fill it up, that's not a problem. Then the sump plug is a little 6. See if that's as easy. There we go. Drain the transfer box fluid out. Now the moment of truth to find out what flange we actually have, whether we've got a revised one or not. It's got a T40 Torx in the middle. Dong. Let's find out what we've got. Oh. Go. And let's see what we've got. So straight away I can see this is an original flange. The new revised one has a groove around that for that raised lip on the seal to sit in. It's just like a secondary dust seal. And so we should have a flat, yeah, we've got the original flat type seal. So we've got the correct seal and the correct flange. Because that's a problem people have. They order the revised seal and don't replace this. So the seal is then rubbing on the back of the plate. So that's fine, we've got the correct one. Well, we've got both, but we've definitely got the correct one. So it's the early seal. The To fit the revised seal, you have to fit a new one of these as well, which is £216 plus that, just for this flange, and then another £30 for the seal as well. So I'm going to continue with the original, clean it all up, and pop this seal out. It's just like a crank seal, it's easy enough just to get behind and pop it out. So here's my old bits all off and cleaned up. As you can see, my seal matches this one. There's the lip on the revised one. And the trouble where the confusion comes, especially in this instance where it says it could be either, is it all depends what flange you've got here. The original seal sits on and it's nice and snug up to here. That's the one without the lip on. If you put the one with the lip on, nice and snug, that would jam this seal up against this flat face because it hasn't got the groove cut out, and then it leaks straight away even worse than before. So mine is the 018-409-399B. Like I said at the beginning, my S6 actually had this one as factory with no revision, but my dad's 4-motion Passat, same year, had this flat one. So I've got this one ready, let's go and put it in. So I've just been looking up the torque settings on ElsaWin, and even on there it mentions this revised flange and revised seal. So if you've got the output flange of part number 01V409809A, it has that extra lip in it labelled A on the diagram, and so you need the matching seal with the extra skirt on it with the B on the diagram there. But in reality, there's no real way of knowing which flange you've got, because there's no way you're going to see a part number, and you can't even see the flange when it's on the car. So it just shows taking it out as I did, pop the old seal out with a little lever bar as we did, and it does say there's a specialist tool for getting the new seal in, and that's because it doesn't sit flush with the front of the top cover. It actually just sits recessed in 1.7mm below the top cover. You don't want to tap it all the way in, because if you just keep tapping till it stops, it will drop inside the box, which is not good news, because then you've got a seal in your box and you also need another new seal. So what we'll do, we'll tap it in flush and just give it one more little tap, and that'll be about the 1.7mm. So let's get it all in. So that's got it in nice and flush with the top cover. We'll put a smaller one on, just give it a little tap inside. There it is, just below the surface. But the most important thing, it's in there nice and square. So now we can put the flange back in. Pop the flange back in. Just put a little bit of the transfer box oil on there just to make sure it's lubed up and not going to tear the shaft at all. Clicked in. And we've got our brand new bolt with the T40 Torx on the end to hold it all in. Let's put a couple of old bolts in so we can hold it still. We'll do that one up to 25 Newton meters. Listen for the beat. And we've got all our new prop shaft bolts, so we can put them in as well. And they go up to 55 Newton meters. So I've just straightened out the bottom cover that goes under there. The reason they've bent it up, it's supposed to bolt into this bolt hole here and this one here, but they've actually bent it and bolted it onto that one there. So I've bent it straight again, we'll bolt it back into these two. 25 Newton meters. I'm just giving the heat shields a little clean up, so we'll get them back on. Start at the back and work our way forwards. Check nothing's touching. All good to go. That's the exhaust all on. Make sure it all sat nicely in the bumper cutout, so nice and even. But we're all bolted back on. Got the centre hangers back in, and then the exhaust clamps all on. You can usually reuse these, but as mine had been bodged around a bit, I thought it'd be a good idea to replace them, then I won't have to worry about it again. So that's everything bolted back together. And the last bit we need to do is fill the transfer box up with fluid. Very important, make sure you don't forget that one, because that will give you a big headache. So double check the drain plug is tight, 20 Newton meters on that one. And then we loosened the fill plug earlier. That's there, and that's just a simple level plug. So we've just got to fill through this hole until it drills out, and that's the correct level. And we'll pump it up from the bottom. Not everyone's got one of these flash pumps like this. So what you can do, you can get really cheap hand pumps to pump from the bottom up into it. Or what I've actually done before is I had a long hose like this, and I ran it out under and held this up beside the car, so it gravity fed until it came out. So there's ways to get it all in. You just got to keep pumping until it finds its level and it comes out the level plug. And here it comes. And I've just nipped the level plug up. And one thing before I torque it down properly, I just want to put it in gear and give it a couple of rotations just so all the oil can get in all its places and sit around the seal nicely. Double check nothing's leaking, and then we'll get it back down, torque it up, and then we'll be job done. So I've just run it up for a minute, loosen this back off, double check. Just want a nice little stream of oil coming out. That'll be at the correct level. Yeah, that'll do nicely. So we'll torque this up and get it back down on the ground. 35 Newton meters. Happy. And we're safely back on the floor, and that's completed the transfer box rear output shaft oil seal replacement. All the levels are topped up to the maximum, and we've got no leaks or no problems, so that should be service free for a long time yet. As you can see, it was quite an easy job, and hopefully you can use this video to follow and use it as a bit of a guide to do it yourself. Just remember, this was for my 2004 RS6, so if your model is different, then make sure you double check your torque settings and procedure to check nothing's changed, although they are all very similar. But it's definitely something that you can do on the floor. I did my C5 S6 on axle stands, and my dad did his Passat 4Motion on axle stands as well. But I can't thank Autoshack enough once again for letting me use their ramp and using their workshop, because it gave me the opportunity to film it for you guys, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I was down on the floor. Some things are in fact a little bit easier when you're doing it on axle stands on the floor. Like when I was taking the exhaust off and pulling it out, when you're 6 foot up in the air, that's a lot of weight wobbling around to get it out and bring it round. Whereas when you're on the floor, you can just put a jack under it and slide it out. And also, hopefully, this has answered a few questions about the two types of seal. Because when I was asked by Audi which one I had no idea that there was an option for a second one. So when I gave it a Google, there's lots of posts, especially on the A4 forums, about the 3-litre Quattros that also have this problem of two options for a seal. And they're in the same boat where the revised flange would need the revised seal. And so hopefully that's made a bit more sense of what the two different types are. But for now, I think I'll enjoy my leak-free RS6 and go and have some fun.